Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm going to tell the truth about America's founding fathers. And were they self-absorbed, self-interested? By and large, no, they were not. Quite frankly and bluntly, they were not. Many of them were very honorable and courageous men, and let me explain, okay? George Washington, when he was commander-in-chief of the Continental Army, he served without pay. He volunteered to serve without pay, and he suffered with his soldiers in the frozen winter, the cold winter in Valley Forge. When George Washington could have easily bypassed all that as commander-in-chief of the Continental Army, he chose to be with the men who served under him at Valley Forge. Okay? Also, yes, he married Martha Custis, and Martha Custis was a wealthy widow, but she had 2 children from her previous marriage, and George Washington raised those children as his own, and he felt responsible for them, and he wanted to make sure that those stepchildren grew into being happy, well-adjusted adults. Okay? And then John Adams was a New Englander, and there was a lot of friction between the Virginians and the New Englanders, but at the Second Continental Congress, in the Continental Congress meeting that happened, that took place near Bunker Hill, or at the same time as Bunker Hill, the Battle of Bunker Hill, John Adams said he wanted George Washington to be commander-in-chief of the Continental Army. And one of his fellow New Englanders, John Hancock, applied to be commander-in-chief as well, but John Adams said, I second the nomination for George Washington. And John Adams had nothing to gain by that, and a lot of New Englanders got mad at John Adams for that. That's how selfless John Adams was. Also, John Adams was an abolitionist. He was against slavery. His wife Abigail was as well. Actually, when Abigail was a school teacher, she admitted a black student, a guy by the name of James Prince. And let's go to Sam Adams, John Adams' cousin. Sam Adams led the Boston Tea Party, threw the tea in the river because Britain put a monopoly on tea on the colonies. Well, Sam Adams, unfortunately during that time, people were giving slaves as gifts from time to time. And Sam Adams, he got slaves as gifts, but anytime he got a slave as a gift, he automatically freed the slave. That happened. So, God bless our founding fathers. Now, to a certain extent, the founding fathers were not typical of the average American population and their attitudes towards slavery and in their selflessness, but at the same time, that's what made those men unique. And yes, while the Constitution was intended at first for white male property owners and only them, it became a document for everybody, women, minorities, everybody. So, people need to recognize that. And Stephen Ambrose notes that in his book, To America. And George Washington could have easily been made king. He was so popular in the United States, but he chose to step down after 2 terms because he wanted the United States to be a republic and not a monarchy or a constitutional monarchy. And had the British won the war, George Washington would have probably been taken back to Britain and drugged by a horse carriage. That would have been his method of execution. So, God bless our founding fathers. A lot of them already had plenty of success and plenty of wealth when the U.S. became an independent country. So a lot of them had really nothing more to gain, but they chose to do it because they felt like they wanted to assert their rights as full Englishmen, which the Crown in Great Britain were not giving to the colonists because they didn't have any representation in Parliament. The reason America became an independent country is because even after the Battle of Bunker Hill, where the British sustained a lot of casualties, they still wouldn't give the U.S. their independence or their full rights as Englishmen. So that's why Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence. And Thomas Jefferson had unbelievable writing skills. Yes, now Thomas Jefferson did teach and emphasize frugality, but he lived in debt. He fathered a child by slavery. He lied about it. He once tried to bribe a hostile reporter. But he also wrote Virginia's first law of religious freedom. So Thomas Jefferson was a very complex character. And he introduced religious freedom to the United States. So anyways, hope everyone's doing well. Take care. God bless. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.